Okay, so in this week, we are going to use Windows VM. You have a drive where you can copy the folder as it's noted here. Okay, we're going to use Windows 10 VM. I don't recommend doing this on your regular computer with your laptop or your desktop, only because we are at some point going to export out malware, so we don't want that to jeopardize our system. The cool thing with the virtual machine is you can keep it in a contained environment and you can also delete it at the end. At some point, Windows virtual machine is going to try to quarantine your malware. So we want to be able to look at the threat a little bit and see. Otherwise, you won't be able to export out the file. It is a known malware and it is credentially related. If you missed earlier, make sure that you don't log into anything as you proceed through the extraction of the malware into from its raw form from the network traffic into your systems, your virtual machine system. Okay. So when I talked to the network team about this here, I mentioned this and they got taken back a little bit, but in reality, this is what you're going to be doing. I think some of you have seen some of this in CIS-47A. We started with Lab 1 doing this, right? This is a major area for responding to incident, so you have to investigate where that comes from. So what I did was I attached my drive and I had copied CIS-41A Win10 VM folder, which contains my virtual machine, right? The two files that you need for your lab. So make sure that you don't run it on the drive, but copy it to your desktop, only because sometimes when you run it on the drive, it crashes, right? But we wanted to use it on the desktop and then delete it when we're done. So I did that. Now I'm going to call up VirtualBox. I'm going to add my Windows 10 virtual machine. So I click add and then I'm going to browse to my Windows 10 VM. Find my VBox file, which is the blue file, click open. But before I start, right, if you check, it already probably have the base memory that you need and the processor. If you need to change it, right, I think I configured this one with at least 8 gig of RAM and quad core. Windows OS use about 4 gig just for the OS. So if you only are at 4 gig, it's going to be crawling slow when you're running this analysis tool. So you want to give it a little bit of juice. So you can go into settings and then make sure that you verify. If you want more RAM, I don't think you need more than this, but if you want, you can dedicate more RAM if your system permits that. Okay. We're using the Alienware, which allows us to, but I only need about quad core. But if you want to up it, you have to shut it down and then increase it before you start. Okay, so I verify that I have enough RAM and processor, which is what I need here, your base memory and your processor core to 4. And once I do that, I can click start. One thing that I'm going to show you is I think some of you remember how to mount USB to the virtual machine. If you download your lab document to your USB, it's probably best instead of logging into Canvas. You can log into Canvas and download your lab into the virtual machine, but it doesn't have Microsoft Word, so it's probably ideal just to access the page. I'm gonna go ahead and click Start. So I'm going to show you how we can download the PCAP file actually to the USB, and then we will mount the USB. But make sure you unmount it when you're done. Otherwise, the virtual machine will see it and not your host machine. So Windows operating system takes a little bit to load. So once it loads, we're going to log in using, I think, the CS-27A or 41A student and then the password. Now, I put different files, different capture files on my Google Drive. And so some of you would see this, right? This is what I typically use for my forensic class. So the files that you need to download is the 2020 August 21. That one is referred to step 15 of the first part. And then later on, you are going to download the subsequent file, which is February 2023 for the Wireshark. If you look, they are all PCAP files. So technically, anytime you have a PCAP file, you're able to use it in Wireshark or in NetworkMiner. Any kind of protocol analyzer would be able to read PCAP file, right? And keep in mind that if you download it, it is a zip file. So I'm gonna go ahead and let me check to see if I have downloaded this. Yeah, I have downloaded the August 21st one. And next to the host machine, and I'm gonna put it on my USB. And then for the later part, if you refer to step 35, it tells you to download the February 23rd, which is this one. You can. That's probably the easiest way, but you have to log into Canvas to access the link. But I'm gonna download it and I'm gonna put it on my USB and I'm gonna mount the USB so I don't have to log into Canvas. So I'm gonna show that, but you can log into Canvas, but make sure you log off before you proceed. Yeah, the whole point is to take the file into the virtual machine. So download it into the VM. I download it on the outside machine and I'm going to transfer it through the USB. That's what I'm doing. But you can log into Canvas and do that as well. So when you see the login, we are going to log in, given the password, CIS-20, maybe without exclamation point. Check my CIS-41A with an exclamation point. Okay. So we're going to log in. And just to jog your memory, if you took CIS-27A or if you have not learned, NetworkMiner is one of the best tools that you can use for network forensic. Okay? It does okay with, if you run NetworkMiner, it is the same as running Wireshark. The interface is not as pretty as Wireshark, but NetworkMiner, it does very well in giving you additional information when you're doing forensic. The version that we're using is free, okay? There is a professional version that the license is expensive, right? So as you are in your, let me see. Your virtual machine. So we're going to have to install it if it doesn't have the app. So if you start from scratch, you are likely going to need to get your capture, right? And then be able to install NetworkMiner. I thought I did install it, but we're going to go to network download. So that's really easy. You just need to get your browser open. And then if it prompts you this, right, you need to install Edge. So we need to install Edge. Because a lot of the website won't let you access without Edge or if you're using the Explorer. So we're going to save and then run. So the first thing is we need to get our browser be available Then what we're going to do is we're going to install NetworkMiner. I should have given you guys the forensic VM, but that would save a little time. Okay, so when I'm prompt with this, when I'm installing Edge, right, I just make sure that I press. Sorry, I'm losing my capture for a second here. We're just gonna allow. Is it crashing? Yeah. So I press the arrow key because my mouse is not responding. I'm just going to accept because that's Windows Firewall prompting. Are you sure you want to install Microsoft Edge? If you don't install Microsoft Edge, you can probably navigate through the web for some part, but a lot of the website is going to require you to use a safe browser. So we want to make sure that we install Edge. That's fine. It's going to take a couple minutes to do that. So when you open up Internet Explorer, it's going to prompt you to install Edge. Install it. When you're done, we are going to get the tool that we need. One of the tools that you need is going to be your NetworkMiner. So you can search for NetworkMiner download. You don't have to use the actual link that I provide, and you'll be able to download and install. The file is fairly small. So I'll walk you through that. Now, while we're waiting for that, the screenshot that I provide here is just giving you a little bit of background about the network that you're looking at. So the LAN segment is going to be this in this range. If you already learned networking, this is a CIDR. This provides you with 255, 255, 255.0. It is a class C subnet mask. However, if you're looking at the IP address, it is a class A. So they subnet this particular address. This is a common IP address starting with a 10 dot right here for larger enterprises. So in this LAN segment, we're going to look at 10.8.21.0, which is a broadcast all the way to the end of the range. So these are the IP addresses we're working with. The domain is tecsolutions.info. Your domain controller, your DC, this is promoted with the .8. So this particular system is a server. So that's a domain controller. So when do you have a domain controller, right? This is a Windows environment. So you go through the process of installing that role. So you have a DC. Your gateway, which is your router, it is a .1, right? And then your broadcast, which is a .55 at the end. This sends to all systems. So keep in mind, and we are going to look for specific IP address with those 3 octet. Okay, I'm going to select start without syncing data, confirm and continue, and we're going to confirm and start browsing. It's going to prompt you whether you want to sync your data, which requires you to log in, but we're not logging in. So once I have my Edge, I'm going to look for NetworkMiner download. And you want to scroll down a little bit. It is released by NetTraceSec, right? You can also find others. So I put the link here. If you look at the actual link on your host, it's this particular company. Do not go to the other website because sometimes they're not reliable sources. So we want to go here. And when, you get a little bit of screen capture, so you're going to scroll down and there are 2 versions. We don't want to pay the $1,300. That's the professional version, but look at the things that comes with that, right? You have additional feature for sure. Like you can port a lot of your data into Excel or CSV for analysis purposes. So yeah, the $1,300 is buying you a lot of features, but we're gonna use the free version, which is on the left side, free edition. We're gonna click that. And note that it is a zip file, so you have to extract it using your Windows extraction tool. Okay, so what I did was I install Edge. On Edge, I search for NetworkMiner download. One word, NetworkMiner download. And then from there, I go down to find. It's different result for sure. But the Tresec, this one, well, I don't want it from Sophonic, but you want to find this company, this link, right? To be able to go down and then you're gonna download. And this has to be done on the virtual machine. Okay. Once I have the installation file, I'm gonna go ahead and open up my file manager here and go to downloads. And here is my application, right? Note that it is compressed. So I'm going to right click and you are going to select extract all and extract. So we need to download the app, but it is in compressed format. So we have to extract it. So once you extract it, you're going to open up the extracted folder. And here is the app. You would see a little purple, like slanted T icon, and it says application. That's how you're going to be able to access the app. Remember, you have to extract. If you don't, your app will not run, right? So once you download NetworkMiner app, that's what you would have. Okay, so that's what I did for step 12. Now, we extracted the folder. You're going to right click and extract. And then you are going to open up the app. So it looks really simple. It looks kind of like network or Nmap interface almost, right? You're going to see the typical graphical user interface. But anyways, it's going to give you this interface. We don't have the file to analyze yet. This is what we're going to do next. So there's two approaches to step 15. One, you can log into Canvas, access the lab page, click the link on inside the virtual machine and download. Or you can download on the host machine, which is the outside computer, put it on a USB and mount the USB, which is what I'm going to do. Note that the malware that you're working with is a credential-based malware, so make sure if you log into anything, log off as soon as you complete the download. Okay? Don't forget to do that. So what I did was I downloaded on my host machine, my outside computer, the traffic analysis file. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And I'm going to put it on my USB. You can put it on the drive that you have or your own personal USB if you want. It should be small enough, right? So once I have that, right, if you want, you can also download the other one, which is this one for the next part. I'm going to check. So I downloaded that one, so I'm just going to also copy that onto my USB. So step 15 and step 35, I downloaded on the host computer and I put those to my USB. Yes.
Yes, I fell behind in the beginning. I was doing my lab.
Where are you?
On the transferring files of the
Which is what I'm doing right now.
11. Like the start of it. Yeah, right there.
You logged in?
Yeah.
Okay. So you need to go to your virtual machine, click your Internet Explorer, and it's going to prompt you to install Edge, and you're going to say accept and install.
Microsoft Edge already on.
Yeah. So then if you already have Microsoft Edge, then you're going to look for NetworkMiner download. So just search for NetworkMiner download. You're going to download the application and it is zipped, right?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So make sure you get the free edition, this one. So once you downloaded it, you are going to right click it inside your virtual machine and extract all. It's going to give you the extracted folder. Once you have the extracted folder, open it up and find the application tool, which you will run. That's how you get the app to your system. So I'm putting it on the host and I'm transferring it through my USB. You can log into Canvas and download it, log into Canvas inside your virtual machine and download it that way. Because the link is embedded and it's also long, I don't want to log into Canvas because, you know. So the on step, so after I extract Ethan, I have an extracted folder, right? Called NetworkMiner 3-1, like this. I open it up, open up the subfolder, and I look for the app. It says application. I want to double click it to run. Yeah. And it's going to give me the interface like this. You can close the other websites. So now I need to get the captured file. Okay? So like I said, you can open up your Edge and log into Canvas and click the link to download. Make sure you log off. Or what I did was I downloaded on the outside computer my network traffic capture, which is this file for step 15. And I put it on my USB. So I copy paste it to my USB, this file. So I had it on downloads, right? You right click, copy, and then go to your USB, paste it in. And then I did the same thing for step 35. I just wanted to do one shot. So in step 35, for the next part, it asks you to download the next file. The reason why is that when you mount it, you have to unmount it and then go back and forth. So so on the same download page, you're gonna download the next file, this one, the 2023 February. So we download this one and we download this one. You can just click it and click download. Right? This is from my Google Drive. So now, once you have the files, right, on your virtual machine, this is how you mount it. You can go to Devices, USB, and you want to find your USB. I'm using the USB that I gave you at the beginning of class, those small little ones. So it will say U disk. But if you're using the school drive, right, like Western Digital, whatever the brand, you select the drive that you see, okay? So how do I know which drive? Well, on this PC, right, or you can look at your USB, the properties or whatever label, but the small USB that I typically give you at the beginning of class, those are your generic, right? Your general UDISC. That's typically what it's labeled at. Okay. So you can select the Western Digital drive or, whichever drive that you are using to be able to save your file. So I'm going to mount my USB. And it's going to take a second for Windows to recognize the drive. See? But when you're done, you need to unmount it. Otherwise, your host computer, your outside computer will not see your USB. So if you're trying to save your document back into your USB, make sure you uncheck that device on the list. Go to devices, right? USB, and then uncheck that device. You see that right here? Yours might be a different name of the USB. So now I have my USB, right? I'm going to go ahead and drag my file to my desktop. The same thing for the next one. So now I have the capture files that I need. Okay? But you can log into Canvas and download inside your virtual machine. Log off. Any questions?
Okay,
Yeah. So you would download, right? And are you there? You save your file to your USB. Go to your virtual machine at the top, click devices, go to USB, and find your USB on this list. If you're using the school drive, right, you can look for Western Digital or, the PhD file drive. But if you're using the drive that I typically give you, the small little USB drive, that one is the general U disk. So find the USB that you're attaching and then click it to check that box. So what that does, it mounts it to the virtual machine and it takes a couple seconds for it to see it. It's going to pop up a little window saying USB. Then go to your file manager, open up the USB, and then find your 2020 August, drag that to the capture traffic analysis, drag that to your desktop, and then the other one from step 35 that you download, you can drag it. So basically that's how I transfer my file. Yep. Any question?
So
Mm-hmm.
once you're done pasting, should we unmount the hard drive from the VM?
Yeah, you can if you want, right? If you want to, yeah, let's do that. So if I want to unmount so I can save my document as I do the lab, just go to USB and then click that USB drive again, right? It's gonna remove that. Now you can see it on the outside, technically. See? It pops back up. Yeah. That's because a lot of the time students don't unmount it, so it's stuck inside the virtual machine. So the way VirtualBox works is it's either on the inside or the outside, it cannot be both. So if you have your lab document on that USB, yeah, unmount it so you can type it on the host computer. Okay? Are we clear? Any question? So that's how you mount USB. Some of you remember this from last semester.
When I extract the file, it's require passwords. So
Yeah, there will be there's a when you extract it, it tells you infected is the password. So that's what we're gonna do next, right? If you need password for extraction, see step 16. It's infected. Okay, so I'm gonna continue now. I have my app running, right? I have this PCAP file if you need to extract the file. So it says that after downloading if it's a PCAP folder, then you have to, but I downloaded the actual file, so you don't need to extract. But if you need to extract, right? Because it's not compressed. But if you downloaded the compressed folder that I created, then the password is step 16. So know the difference that this one, right? This one, actually, you're right. Yeah, this is a .zip. Oh, did I not transfer? Oh, okay. This one is not it's not compressed. If you download this one, see how there's a .zip, then you have to extract. You understand? There, I put all of them on there. So this one is not compressed. This one has a .zip. If you see a .zip, you have to right click and extract. And if you need a password, it's on step 16. Okay, we're gonna turn some stuff off real quick in case, I don't know, Windows Firewall might try to block things. But so we're going to go inside the virtual machine. You can right click the Windows button. You can go into settings. I'm here, step 17. And we want to, because it's network related, we want to kind of turn some stuff off. Right. We're analyzing the system. We're not running anything live. So you're going to go to network and internet. And you can also just search for firewall. I think that's probably the easiest way because every version of Windows 10 is a little different. But if you scroll down, there's Windows Firewall. So there's many ways to get to the Windows Firewall. You can also search for it. So by default, your Windows Firewall is on. It should be on, or you can also enable it. So what we can do is we can turn a couple of things off. We are going to select private network and we can toggle that off. And we also going to turn the domain off. So you can click on the domain network and then just click to the left and it's going to say, are you sure you want to turn me off? Say yes. And then click back. And then on your private network, click it and then toggle it off. Yes. The only reason why is because it is a capture file. It's not going to hugely impact a lot, but we want for it to not block certain things when we're looking at it. So I just wanted to turn stuff off. And you can turn it back on when you're done. Okay, so again, I'm going to repeat the steps, right? If you follow, we're going to go into settings. You can right-click Windows button, going into settings, and going to network and internet. If you scroll down, you would see Windows Firewall. Click that. And then click on Domain Network and click the toggle button from on green to off red. And it confirmed yes. Go back to your settings by clicking the back arrow, go down to private network, click it, and toggle it off, just like the other step. So basically, I made myself I configured the system to not have any kind of filter at the moment for the application filter, right? And then you can close the setting. Now we're going to come back to the NetworkMiner app that we had installed and opened in the prior step. We're going to open up the extracted captured file. So go to File, click Open. Oops. And you see that it's on my desktop here, right? If you extract it, it will be in the folder on your desktop. So go to your desktop and then maybe open up the folder or find your PCAP file. You need to have a PCAP, not a pcap.zip. If you have a .zip, make sure you right-click and extract. Okay? So it needs to be a PCAP file and then click Open. Then it's going to load your capture. So basically, capture is network activity at a moment in time. And this was captured in 2020, right? You see how that little pop-up, it says threats found? It's already containing my threat. And that's coming from the network capture. Okay? So that means that it quarantined it. It locked it away. We have to go unlock it and look at it. Because even if you bring it in, sometimes Windows put it away, right? We wanted to see what that is. Okay, so I load my PCAP Then I'm going to take a screenshot of this. And each tab is going to give you a summary of the count. Okay? So you can see that it listed 54 hosts. That means that those are the system that's communicating when this capture of the traffic happens, right? It could be sending, it could be receiving, and each of the plus sign expand the conversation between these hosts, these systems, okay? So it asks you how many hosts were identified, 54. So when you are investigating an incident that's relating to network, you want to use a network capturing tool or network analysis tool. Bring in your captured file and look at who's talking, right? Which system is communicating. Okay? And then the files, these are the type of files that are being sent across. This one right here, pay attention to that one, right? Whenever you see .cap, .bat, potentially because it's accessing DLL, dynamic library. So, but these are certificates. So whenever you go to like a secure website, sometimes there's an exchange and certificate so you can have encryption in that session, right? We talked about that before. So you see certificate. NetworkMiner is really good at organizing this for you. So it's great, right? So when you look at files, now remember that potentially it might quarantine one of my files, right? If it's a bad file, Windows is gonna lock it up, right? The threat security center is gonna say, no, I don't want this file to be floating around. I'm gonna put it away. So I'm gonna check, right? So if you search for threat or virus protection in your Windows environment, it's going to take you to the security threat protection management console or management window. And what you would see is that here we want to, so there's no action needed because sometimes if it doesn't know, it's going to, we don't want scans. So it says 0 threats found. Last scan was 3 minutes ago, which is when you saw that threat thing happening. So what you can do is you can go into, let me see, 1 second. Yeah. So what I did was I'm in the threat center, right? Like this. You see this allow threats? You're going to click it, right? And then you're going to go to protection history and it's going to pull this up. It's going to tell you that, oh, you turn off the firewall. There's like something about OneDrive recovery action, but the one that we want to see is this one, threat block. And it happens to be 4 minutes ago. As soon as that scan happens, right, you are going to click that level. You see what I did? Right here, just click it. It's going to come up with the security notification. We're going to say yes. And it tells you that there's a Trojan, Win32, that's being removed, but it's an ICE Trojan. If anybody's familiar with ICE ID, this is a credential Trojan. If you're not sure, go to Virus Total and look up this information right here. It's going to take you to variation of the Trojan. This captured your credential. Okay? So it puts it away. So that means that one of your file in that capture got quarantined with the Trojan. We wanted to see which one that is. So that means that your Windows Threat Center is effective, right? It sees a signature of a Trojan. So if you want to bring it back, you click action and allow, okay? Because you have to write a report on it. And then it says, are you sure? Say yes. This is why you don't do it on your computer. Okay. Any question? Yeah, David. Did it get blocked? Let me use signal for that on bait. I mean on edge.
Yeah.
I can give it to you on need unmount your drive or eject it. I'll put it there for you. Yeah, sometimes the you can also try to call. You got it?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, let's save this. Yeah, sometimes it gets the little pop up and then it blocked it. Okay, are we okay with that? Okay, so now, right, I'm still at 136 files. So what we're gonna do is we answer these questions. So when you put together a malware analysis report, you kind of have to see like which systems are involved, what kind of files are that were kind of captured, and which files were infected. Which IP address really represent this or identified as these systems. Yes. And just drag it to your desktop. And then extract it and use it. Yeah, if you follow the steps, it would walk you through that. Okay, other questions? So once you have the file on your desktop, make sure you extract. If the password is required, look at step 16, right? And then go through the steps. It walks you through on how to do that. Now, for those of you who got to 24, right? Credentials is important because NetworkMiner would also tell you like who logs in to which systems and it would tell you which user account access the system and potentially download. So there is Matthew Jones, right? And we know that it is a Windows system because it has Windows services. So you would see Matthew Jones, right? We talked about Kerberos as a service or as a protocol. And we talked about the domain controller, right? So you have the credential information of that user, Matthew Jones. Was the password encrypted? Yes, it uses Kerberos there.
Professor, how do we know the password's encryption is Kerberos system?
Yeah, so the protocol, it tells you here. Now, traditionally Windows uses NTLM and it still does in the back, right? This is a hashing mechanism that is used for network password protection. So when you use tools like pass the hash or tools to guess password, if you use NTLM, it'll guess your password. So even if you have a long password, right, you just gotta make sure that it has the resource to do that. So you can also brute force these type of password pretty easily. So if you on the legacy or even the modern system, if it's configured to use NTLM, then it's kind of vulnerable. So you even on the Kerberos side, sometimes you actually captured what is being used as a password. So when you see the password here, right? It would also relate to that particular user account. That means that they are logging into a network system, right? They're authenticated to that system that's part of that domain, just like how you log into your school computer, right, with your account. And then when you look at the host tab, let's filter this IP. Why do I filter this IP? Because I just looked at Matthew Jones, right, system, which is the .8. You see that? So I want to focus on his computer because potentially that's the one that probably brought us bad file. So this is his IP address right here, and this is the domain controller, right? We talked about that in earlier part. So he logs into the domain, which is the server is a .8, and his computer is a .163. So click on your host tab, and you're gonna type in 10.8.21. So only one dot 163. And when you filter that out, you're only going to see his system information, right? That's going to give us a little bit more detail. So when you do an incident investigation, have more screenshots so you can come back and kind of see what's happening, right? The details, and then write the explanation below, because that's like sometimes that helps as evidence, because when it goes to court, the clearer you are, the better it's going to be. Right? So we want to identify his system, the host, the system that access the network. So what is the MAC address that really pertain to this right here? Right? So type that down. What is the operating system that he used on his computer? The OS is Windows. We know that. You can click the plus sign to expand, and it tells you specifically the version that it could find, right? Is it necessarily exactly accurate? Might not be 100%, but it's close, right? So potentially it could be like older XP all the way to Windows 7 or even upgraded, but the user agent, the software is Windows. Any question? Okay. As we know, right, in the past, Windows used NetBIOS, and it still does. This allows the system to be recognized with host name. So if you're gonna try to see if there is NetBIOS information. If it doesn't, then you don't have that information, right? So click on host details. So on host details, it tells you there is your NetBIOS information. Do I have to write the full thing? In real world, yes. Everything in exact. Because sometimes your system can be different by just one character or two characters. So we want to be detailed. So this is NetBIOS is used to resolve by name and the computer name, right, which is desktop OF for blah blah blah. Now it can go all the way up to 255 characters, but this is the longer detailed name for it. So that's under host details, and you can expand the plus sign to kind of see. And then coming back to the username information, right? You saw in the credential, so go back to the credential tab under the Kerberos. So I can, if you want, you can like pull this over a little bit. And we would see the user account. So the username, we already know it's Matthew.Jones. So for question B and C, go back and check the credential tab. Now, when I wrote some of these steps, the older version of NetworkMiner might contain this all in the host. But if you don't find it here, use the other tabs. Any question? Jesse, you came. All right, I'll change your attendance. Okay, any questions? All right. So I teach you how to kind of filter down a specific system. We'll look at the credential, we'll look at the login. Why do I focus on that? Because remember, when you're looking at the files, a lot of these are like cert for like secure encrypted access. Anything with like dynamic library like this, that's an outlier for sure. And then you need to look at the IP address that's affiliated with it. So next, we are going to screen that IP address. We're going to filter that one, right? So anything .cap, .bat with dynamic library, you know that it's capitalizing on system resources. It comes in like this. That's the one to focus in. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to go to the Files tab, and we are going to look for this particular one. And you can put that into the filter, right? I'm going to focus on this one to see how many. It might not be just that one packet. So enter the IP address. And it's only that one time, right? Now, in an enterprise environment, you might not just have one system that download. It might be multiple, or sometimes it will spread quickly, right? So you might see it across, but in this case, you only have one system that was downloaded. Okay, so we filter that out for 29, and you look at the file. Okay, what's the size? It tells you that in bytes. The B is for bytes. Who sent it? That's the host. Supposedly it's this domain, but that could change. We talked about that before. What's the port?
TCP/80.
Yeah, that's a non-secure, right? So that's why sometimes we don't want to allow port 80. So if you scroll right a little bit, it'll tell you the port. And then who receives it? Matthew Jones' computer, right? That verifies it. And then the file location, if you scroll right more, right? There's a timestamp here. So it tells you like at this time, approximately 3:04 p.m. But in investigation, as some of you learned this in CIS-41A, we want universal time, UTC. This is why a lot of the app uses UTC, right? You don't want to interpret that to Pacific or whatever standard time that you're using. You want to record it in UTC. So the timestamp is noted there. And it uses the HTTP GET. So that means it downloaded through the GET request. And then it's under this path, but because it's our virtual machine path. But anyway, right? So I wanted to show you where you can find stuff on the NetworkMiner. It's a very cool tool. And then now I know you can't do 30. Okay? So you can skip 30 because this is no longer an available feature on the free version. So when you get to 30, skip it.
Was able to find a website that would just look at the file and give
Yeah.
the shots you said.
So you need to, so in investigation, I'm going to tell you, you have to get like what Ali suggested, that you have to get a hash for your file to verify. You can use a hashing tool. You can an app, you can use a website to do that, etc., right? But originally NetworkMiner has this as a feature, right? If you go way, way back when I first taught 41A, when I demoed this on when it was during COVID, we, they took that away. It's no longer there, but you have to record the hash algorithm for that file. So skip 30. You can go to an external resources for that. Now we're gonna go and look at the session. So these are the established session between the systems, and typically you would see this is being used for like the services like HTTPS, which is what you see here in 443 for SSL, right? You saw Kerberos, that's for credential verification here, that's the protocol that's used. And then, so these are the sessions and then the ports that it uses. So you can look at the session. And what we want is we want to filter out the specifically Matthew Jones computer for the session. So it's mostly in this capture, it's mostly his, but remember that in an enterprise network, you're going to get a lot and a lot, right? So we want to look down the list for, so the client, which is Matthew Jones' computer or the desktop at his work, and it's going to communicate to the external, right? Like you see this right here, or you would see like Siesta, whatever, .club, Skype. So I want you to go down and identify like potentially some of your domains or your IP address that could be suspicious that he's connecting to. Because in some cases, you might have a domain that's referring to another domain to get you the malware, and this is how they host a lot of the water holes to distribute malware or like different type of code, is that sometimes the user go to a website and that website redirect them to another website and so on. So when you investigate, you don't leave out anything, and so that's why you can go down the list. We already talked about the one particular one that had the .cap, right? You saw that in the files tab, but we want to go down and look at like the session that was communicated between his system and another domain. So you want to be able to kind of, if you determine that the 89 dot whatever, and we can do we can investigate who this IP belong address to. That IP address belong to. Which is this domain, right? You can find that. That is external. So put down 3 to 4 IP addresses that you consider suspicious. Suspicious doesn't mean that it's bad completely, right? We just wanted to look further. Okay, so this section is about reporting. A lot of people skip this. I want to reiterate that all of this stuff you need to summarize, right? Take the answers that you had, put your name, put today's date, put the answers that you have recorded, right? What's the incident date? We saw the timestamp. Who's the infected host? That's the computer, the BIOS name, the net BIOS name, the IP address, the file that we saw, the .cap. Who's the account? We wrote down Matthew.Jones, right? Again, put down the IP address, the MAC address that you recorded in the prior questions, and then the net BIOS name, the system name. We're not going to have G because if you didn't calculate the hash, you might not have the hash, but I recommend using a hash tool for this. Put down the file name and file size that you recorded and the location. right? Coming back to the IP address that you recognize, remember when you look at the files here, right? Remember this one? So you have filtered that one out, right? Look at the IP address for that one. Sorry. Yeah, so port 80, we looked at that, right? Matthew Jones connected to this particular IP address. That's going to be the malicious system, the domain, the source, the port. So everything that you answered in the prior question, you can just bring it down here, right? But in a regular report, you have to put it into like a format where it will be read in a larger environment like court. You can't just start listing things. They don't know what that means. And so what is your recommendation? Easy, right? Possibly update anti-malware, signature, and heuristic on the network and on the local host systems, right?
Also,
Train to use it. Go ahead.
also ensure unneeded ports are deactivated.
Right. Disabling, non-secure port like port 80. Teach the user or have user awareness training program to make sure that users are aware of malicious websites that could potentially distribute malware. There's so many things that you can do with this. Improve organization policy on what is allowed and what's not allowed. Maybe possibly that, implement firewall rules to be able to block malicious IP address and ports. Lots of stuff that you've learned so far that can go into this. So your consultation part is to find out what had happened and how to fix it, right? This question addressed how to fix it. Okay?
That's
Yeah.
number 30.
Yeah, 30 you don't have. Yeah, they changed this feature, no longer there. Yeah. So if you want to have a hash, you have to use a website or a tool that's outside of NetworkMiner. I don't require 30. But if you want, you can go to a website and then you have to like upload the file to be able to calculate the hash. But you can also upload it to VirusTotal and it gives you a hash too. And VirusTotal will tell you exactly what that malware is. Okay. We don't need that, but if you want to use it for your report, you should use a third party, I recommend. Any question regarding B? So this is like cliff notes of malware analysis, right? You have a perfect environment with the capture. What I challenge you to do is to learn more about how to use this tool, is to maybe do a live capture of your own network, right? Like logging into system and then be able to use this tool to understand how to use it a little bit more. That's how you can practice. You can use virtual machine and download the tool and install from scratch like what we did, right? How to capture, you learned how to capture last week using Wireshark and T-Shark. Okay, next we're going to use a different capture and we are going to use Wireshark. So now I'm going to go ahead and close NetworkMiner unit and you're going to like these tools. So I already have the captured file that I need. I'm going to go ahead and right click. Oh, I wanted to show you how you can export out the malware. Let me come back to NetworkMiner a little bit. So earlier we were here, right? And we filter out this one. You can right click and go to file details. Remember the hash stuff that I told you? It's there, right? But you have to identify the file. So if you want to answer 30, it's there. You right click the file, you go to file details, it shows it. Now, so there's like different, and I would recommend screenshotting this when you investigate, and then when you put it on the report, you can also include your screenshot and then list the hash information and the file size and all of those things, right? Um, so it shows this and the source and all of that if you need to. Let's see. Did they take away an export tool? Yeah, maybe they did, huh? Let me see. More details, OSINT, supply filter. I guess it's in the local path, but there used to be an option where you can just extract it, but you can export it. Anyway, I'll come back and I'll take a look at this again. Yeah, so I guess now you can do an open run file, which allows you to kind of like see. Remember, we talked about like malware analysis, how you need to see how active it is and what it's doing, right? At this point, what I would recommend is disable your network connection to your host, like setting it to internal and then reboot your systems and then go through this. So if you want to run the file and see, and to simulate the malware, you would need to do that, right? Yeah, before there used to be like an export option where you actually pull it as a .bat onto like a location, but I guess this is the same. It's still gonna open and run the file. So, but you know, if you want to test this, or you can put it into a container like a Docker or Kubernetes and do that. Okay, so that's how you do that. And then if you want more file information, just go to file details and it tells you some of this here, which answered 30. Okay, next we are gonna come to Wireshark section, which is C. I need to make sure Wireshark is installed because it's not on the virtual machine. So open up your Edge. And then you just need to go download Wireshark or Wireshark download. Go to the website, wireshark.org. And then here, install the x64 Windows, right? So choose the package for your installation. We don't want the other OS. We're using Windows Virtual Machine, so install for Windows. And then click no thanks, unless you want to donate. So after you select Windows 64 installer for Wireshark, we are going to we can close the website, click download, and then go to your downloads folder. And remember, this is inside your virtual machine. Then you know, click the application, this one, for Wireshark and say yes. It's gonna run the MSI file, which allows you to install the app. You're gonna go ahead and keep everything default, go next, next, right? If you want a desktop icon, you can select that. I'm gonna go ahead and do that and then click next and then next. And then you have to install the PCAP the NP cap, which is this for Windows version, so that way it can listen for the signal. Basically, this is a file that activates the interface, like your network adapter. Also for USB, if you're using like a USB device. But I just keep everything default and go next and install, except for the desktop icon. It's gonna take a little bit to go through, get the files ready for you and do the installation. Accept the license agreement. And if you want any of these options, right, WinCap for API, which I don't need, I'm gonna click install. But you can integrate API. It's weird how my Zoom thing disappears, but I want to make sure that it captured the screen. All right. So as it install, I'm going to go ahead and extract the download that I transferred. You can, again, like I said, you can download via logging in. Make sure you log off before you proceed with the malware analysis. But I transferred through the USB, so I'm going to go ahead and right-click the file that I copy on my desktop. And then click extract all and click extract. If the password is prompt, it's infected. Step 36 as it is in the prior. Okay. So once it's extracted, you're going to get a folder that is not compressed, and inside it is your capture, basically. This was created for the Wireshark training, for analysis. So we want to be able to look at, and the step can be tedious and long. So we do have about 30 minutes, so we should be able to address it. Okay, I'm going to complete my Wireshark installation now. So proceed, next, and finish. So to sum it up, when you do network analysis, you need to have network sniffer or net protocol analyzer like Wireshark or NetworkMiner. It's best to use multiple tools to do the comparison. We're using two different capture, but you can run the same thing in Wireshark as you run in NetworkMiner. The interface is different. The features are slightly different. You're gonna get a little bit more in certain application compared to the other. So I want to show you how you can analyze different tools using different tools and different files to maximize your time. Okay, so remember we want to extract the download that we had. The password is provided here. So now, once we extract it, let's open up the app. We're going to go ahead and add the file that we had extracted. So open. I'm going to navigate to my desktop. And how I did that was when you click the file, open here, right? You can go to your user account, go to desktop, and then go to the extracted folder, which is the Wireshark Quiz PCAP for 2023-02, and then select the PCAP. It's going to load the capture like what you've seen in the prior exercise. Similar. So if you have a zip file, make sure you extract, right? I'm going to teach you how to put in the filter, especially looking for a certain type of traffic. We saw some of this a little bit, like a snapshot of it or a few steps last week. But what we're going to do is we want to look for, typically, if they download, they have to have an HTTP request or a secured session to download. Okay? So those are the things that we're going to look for. So the criteria in the filter bar. we're going to look for a request for HTTP, like a port 80, or a session that allows them to, equal true, equal one is true, right? And then where it's not an SSDP, which is a different protocol. So what we can do is we can type all of this in. So in the filter bar, you're going to put the parenthesis as noted, HTTP dot request, and it does have a little help in filling that out for you with the template. Handshake dot type and EQ1, right? Close parenthesis. Let me see. And then we're going to do an and, not SSDP. Oh, I forgot the parentheses. After the exclamation. It's showing up red, so we see HTTP request or TLS and shake type equal 1. Yeah, it doesn't want to wrap this. Let me see. If we're just looking at HTTP request and instead of the argument. Let me see, HTTP request. And if we add another condition. And shape. Yeah, sometimes you have to see if they change the filter syntax. Yeah. So make sure that it's green. I don't know. Some reason when I typed it earlier, it wasn't going. Perhaps I typed in something wrong, but if it's red, retype the criteria, the argument, and then we're going to press apply. Unfortunately, no copy and paste in this VM. So it's gonna filter out, right? HTTP requests, and if you know the or operands, we are looking at this is true or this is true. It's gonna spit out the result for you, but not SSDP traffic. So it's gonna allow you to filter HTTP, HTTPS, with TLS handshake. Okay, so once you have that, take a screenshot. And then the source address, I want you to know. So it looks like 10.0.0.149. So that's the requesting system, right? We want to look for the HTTPS and also the handshake for that system. That's the requesting system. And on the right-hand side, it also tells you like, oh, certain systems that the source is connecting to, the destination is shown here, like for Microsoft authentication, for Google, etc., right? For IRS.gov, VeriSign for Trust, Yahoo, Broadcom. There's many activity that's going on from that particular system. So that's in Wireshark, that's how you would start looking at what kind of web requests and if there's a session with TLS. From whom? Then if you click on the entry, which is what we see here, you can double click. I just want to make sure that I'm all the way to the top, like what I referred to. So let me redo this. Okay. So to see the MAC address, you are going to, for the source, right? This is the MAC address right here. So usually you can see on Wireshark, it's under Ether2 under the frame. So it would say Intel, and then the MAC address is typically, you have the hex digit and then the colon. So that's your MAC address. So we want to write down the physical address of that system, which is the 10.0.0.149 or whatever, right? That's the one we looked at in the previous question. Now we are going to look for NetBIOS name service, which is NBS. We saw this in NetworkMiner in the other part, right? We are also going to look for SMB traffic. As you know, SMB continue to be a vulnerability in our network environment. So you're going to look for NBS or SMB version 2. And so that way you can locate the system name as it is recognized across the network. So outside of your MAC address and your IP address, you wanted to put down your host name. So I'm going to close this window. I'm going to click the X to clear my filter. I'm going to come back here. And to complete step 43, I'm going to put in NBNS or SMB, basically the protocol in lowercase, or SMB2. And if you read the step description, basically it's a way that the system can provide its name, right, to other system. Outside of IP address, we can also connect by host names, right? Which uses the NetBIOS, like what we talked about in Windows environment or in other type of service in other OSs. So here it filters out these type of protocol for you, right? Like this. And you can click the protocol tab to organize it if you want to sort it. So what we're going to do is we are going to look for NB registration for that particular system, which is what we narrowed down in the previous. We want the 10.0. So let me see if I can find. So on the right, you also see some request information as far as the tree, but so we're going to locate the entry that contains registration NB for the source. We're going to look for the system name. Let's see if it shows any kind of NBS also. I'm curious. Oh, I had typed it. Oh, yeah, NBNS. Yeah. So if you're only doing one single NBNS and you want to look for NetBIOS information, that's probably easier than having like SMB and SMB2. But a way that you can get any of these is correct to be in your filter. You can apply the operand or, right? So if I'm only looking at NBNS, which is your NetBIOS, I'm gonna focus on the 10.0.149, and you're gonna get a little lag at some point here.
Honestly, I don't know what the last people who use this Windows 10 VM did, but mine's been running like it's on a 46 all night.
Did you change your RAM?
Oh yeah, the RAM. I took the RAM up to 12 gig.
Well, you have to check if you're copying the virtual machine with its state, then it has a problem. It has some malware or something.
Yeah, it's the one I just straight.
So, Bradley, when you copy it to your desktop, it should only contain the blue and the orange file. If anything changes to your box, it would have the prev and the logs. Next time in the future, before you start, delete those, right? So now after you use it, it should have these. But originally, when you copy your virtual machine, always look for only two files, the drive and the VM. But anyway, so that would eliminate whether the machine is bad or not. It's the same machine that I copy across. So if they change it, it would have those files to start with, right? So,
Do it, but yeah.
what I did was I only look for NBNS and I click on, right? I click on the packet here, which gives me this detail, either popping up on the window or that. But what you want to do is you're going to go to NetBIOS name service like this. Okay. And then what you want is you wanted to dig all the way through, and we want to look for NetBIOS name service if there's additional records. So we want to expand it. So let me see if we can find that. So there's, if you go down to NetBIOS name service and if you click on the answers, right? This system answers to that name. That means that it tells all the other system that this is my computer name. Okay? In the prior video, you probably saw that I filter with the OR operand, but I really think about it. If you're looking for NetBIOS, just look for this. And it's going to give you a little bit less information to narrow down, because you can have a lot. So expand NetBIOS, right? So under here, you should see NetBIOS name. Like I click this packet, right? Because this is the IP address. Go to NetBIOS. And then on the answers, expand it and you should see the name. Click on it and it tells you. If you're using the other way, you have to kind of go multiple steps to get there. So what's the system name? You should see that there. Desktop-E blah, 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 right? And it is an NB type. So all your computer names, your host name is recognized in Windows environment using NetBIOS service. Like how you're able to, your friends know you by name, right? But Other people might know you by your social security number, like the government knows you by your social security number. That's how the system is. It uses different service to be able to connect. All right. So once we're done, we can clear out the filter for 45 once we record the name. So clear your filter. Then next we are going to look at Kerberos now. So I'm going to stop at 50. And if you are ahead, you can continue. And I encourage you to practice. But this can give you different ways to look at the information. But ultimately, you're going to narrow down to a certain port that the malware is infected. So you can go up to 50 or further. That's up to you. But make sure, right, we answer these questions. Okay? If you don't get like account name or etc., that's fine. Just answer some of these questions, the information that you found. Basically, I wanted to show you how you can get all of these answered if you complete all the steps. But if I don't require it, you might not be able to answer the last few questions. Okay. So here I'm going to continue with Kerberos name string. So maybe we'll be able to get the credential. So I'm going to go back to my capture that I have loaded, and I'm going to type in Kerberos .cname string, exactly how it's typed, and press enter. And remember that we are going to focus on the 10.0.0.149. So find the IP address and double click. And then you should see Kerberos on the bottom. This one, you're going to have to go a little deeper. So we are going to expand AS rec body, CNAME string, and it should also specify the computer name. So that's another way that you can confirm that that's the desktop name or the system name. Let me see if it gives you any kind of username. It might not. So yeah, it might shows up under sname string to the, on this one, they're connecting to workforus.org. Okay, last step. So this is a way, let me see. Yeah, so your name type, this is a Windows NT base or NTFS, right? So that's how you can find additional details about the system or the user account. So again, when you see Kerberos, you're going to expand AS rec, go down to rec body, which is your payload, request body. And then go down to CNAME, expand CNAME, and you should see perhaps this is the name. And then the string is for the system. Sometimes system login also. Okay. Then on the last one, you're going to include HTTP request and not SSDP. So this only going to give us the HTTP request, which is typically in green in Wireshark, like as a packet color code. And we're not going to include the other stuff like what we've seen in the earlier step. So what you see is that the .149 is still the system requesting, and these are the external web servers, and this is not secure, and it is a GET. You see this right here? You see the .dat? That's a malicious file coming back right there. Okay, so when they land on that page, right, that is, when it's a download, it's still a GET. So you see a .dat right here. So 2 packets are being displayed. And you can expand, you can double click it to kind of see a little bit on the user agent if you want to record some information like what we've seen before, but this is an HTTP, so you would see that there. Okay. And it's clearly coming back with the file transfer. You can see that there. Okay. So when you document this, you have to expand a little bit and look at the timestamp. So under the frame, it should show you when that frame was built for that communication. So it shows the timestamp here, right? That goes into 51. But it also shows you like if you follow the TCP stream. So I'm going to show you that so you can see. If you right click, follow TCP stream, HTTP is under TCP stream. You can pull the file this way. It shows right here. That's the file. And it shows you the server. It is a web server and NGINX. Most of you already learned this already after doing with Kali Linux web server so many times, right? That is a Linux-based package for web. So it shows you the server. And then you are going to look for the MZ. So that is going to show you that it can run in the lower level of your Windows system. It is an executable file for dynamic library. Most malware are. But if you want to extract the file, export it in Wireshark, you select the packet, which is this one. And then it tells you here that you can go to File, right? And export object, click HTTP. Export object and HTTP. And it's exactly, so this is the file. So it's stream in, and that's how malware got in through the request of your local system and the domain with this IP address. And with that, it does, sometimes it's secure, sometimes it's not secure, but it will tell you like the port, all of that information. So now, once I have the file, right, I'm going to go ahead and finish this for you. Save. I'm going to save it to my desktop so I can upload it to VirusTotal. So a way that you can hash your file is you can, use a command like this, which is in 59. And then you would go to VirusTotal. You can submit your hash or the file itself. And they would tell you exactly what kind of malware that is, if it is already been defined. Okay? So that kind of wrap up on like finding out what kind of malware that is so you can document it. But I would end it at step 50, or if you can go to 60 or higher, that's probably better. In the prior class, and Windows is gonna probably try to quarantine this one quickly too. And as you proceed, it's gonna get a little slower because we're using more resources, right? So as you can see, I saved it to my desktop and it went away, right? You already know what to do. You can you can allow it. I think that's a later one, right? 8:30. So this is a Quackbot that we got from the Wireshark analysis, right? Windows saw that as a Quackbot. You can confirm that this is the malware that you have exported out of that traffic by putting it into VirusTotal or creating a hash file for documentation and also submission. It is a Trojan, right? And if you want to learn more about Quackbot, you can also ask AI or research it. But compared to the other Trojan that came through in the other capture, that was an ICE Trojan. So there you go, right? You can confirm it by matching it up with what VirusTotal has as far as the identified threat. And that's all for now. We finished at 2 minutes over. So when we're done, make sure you shut down your computer so it releases the process. So the virtual machine, we're going to shut it down. Make sure we go to devices, unmount your USB that you previously mounted if you haven't. So click it, so uncheck it, and then wrap up the lab. I don't require 70 to something lab, but in order to complete everything, typically you would have to go through the steps. But if you can get most of these answers or some, that's fine. And then you can delete the folder that you have for your VM and shut down your computer so that way it flushes everything. Okay. So we stop at about step 50. I stop at 60, but you can stop at 50, 51. Any question? You need help, you know? Yeah, you can click on the file and it gives you that. Where's your file? Is that the dot that one? Files, where's your file that you found? That one. Yeah, right click it. File details. Why is it telling me that right click it? Oh, it's quarantined it? Is that right? So how do I unquarantine it? I just described it earlier. Type in your search bar, your Windows search bar. Correct. That. And then go to allow threats. And then go to protection history. Then look for just do the 30. So the 33. Second, no, I'm sorry, that is. Yes. That's what we take action. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, now it's back, right? You can close that. And right. Yeah. So if it's blocked it, you are not gonna see the hash value, right? It's gonna tell you you can't have access to it, so you have to enable this. But technically it should be blocked, and it tells you exactly the size. So yeah, you can't answer 30 if you unblock the malware. Okay, when we're done, we should delete the virtual machine folder with the infected files, right? And then shut down your computer so it clears the storage. They freeze it back to how it was. I'll wait to delete that. If you don't have any questions, actually, I should.